Right, welcome back to the Kados & Co podcast, and I'm joined here by a very familiar face on the YouTube channel, but also the AFL scene and the media scene now in Melbourne. I'm joined by Tommy Mitchell. Tommy, thanks for joining us on the pod, mate.
No worries, Dos. The Bridge Hotel. What a venue. I've never been here sober.
Have you had some nights here?
I've had some nights here. Back in the glory days, I reckon I had a few Saturday nights here. It's I haven't been for a while though. I hear they do good food and things throughout the week as well.
It's just so I moved up from Geelong. Moved into an apartment in Richmond just around the corner, and this was my local, and I couldn't believe it. We want to give the Bridge Hotel a bit of a pump up, but that outdoor bit makes me feel like I'm in Sicily or something.
It does, doesn't it? I said London, but it does have a European feel to it.
Yeah.
So you've done well here.
Nah, I'm loving it here. Tommy, thanks for joining us. Obviously, to give some context and a little bit of history, you were the first footballer to come on the YouTube channel, took the big jump to give us a chop out. We made a couple of videos back in the day, and now you're the first player to hop on the pod. But I want to talk about the first couple of collabs. So I got a DM from you. You were pumping up your new app, Ball Magnets, and you wanted to do a collab on YouTube. And I guess my first question was like, how did you come across like some of the YouTube stuff?
It's a great question. I thought, I didn't know that I reached out. I thought it might have been the other way around, but it wouldn't have been through Bailey, would it? Because did I know him then?
I think my gist was that you must have been working with an agency or something around the app. And I reckon they, at the time, which was like 2020 or 2021, I get the feeling that they would have been like, hey, look for some organic collaborations with content creators. I feel like that was a bit of the shift, but maybe I got an email, but I heard that a DM was coming, and I got the DM and I was pumped.
Yeah, how good. I remember the first shoot we did together it was at an oval in Richmond.
Yep.
And we did the challenges where the theme was AFL versus non-AFL.
Yeah, we had a training session.
We did a training session. So it was a running component, a physical contest component, which I'm sure you'll touch on the story that happened there.
Yeah. Well,
fake shoulder injury.
So me and Rog get down there. Bailey was filming for us, who now works with you at Ball Magnets. And firstly, like we tried to do like a bit of a training session and keep up with you. I was like genuinely blown away by your running capacity. Like some of the drills that you guys were doing in preseason in like October was just insane. One of the ones you were doing like a lap, sprinting a lap, and you had to do it in like 50 seconds, and then you had 10 seconds off, and you did that like 10 times in a row.
Yeah, I think I was. You didn't do the running, but I did that against Rog.
Well, I did one lap and I was just cooked.
Yeah.
I like the intensity of the running. I'd never witnessed anything like it. And I was unfit at the time, but it was actually insane.
No, it was a good little idea. How'd the video end up going? Did we get a few clicks?
Yeah, it was good. I think a little 30 or 40K.
We've done a few over the years. We did the goal kicking one at Icon Park as well.
Yeah, did the goal recreation. That was like almost maybe career highlight. You know, we went down to Icon Park. It was middle of the week. Do you remember that massive storm that kicked in? It was like flash flooding.
We were filming, I think we were filming something for the Ball Magnets app, which doesn't exist now, but at the time, because Cripper was there, Cripper was there, he got the keys to Icon Park, Princess Park, whatever you call it, opened up, we had the whole stadium to ourselves, we did all different sorts of content, and I remember the storm almost meant that we were rained out, or we had to have a few breaks.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the goal challenge that snuck out for me was the Jackie Chan in midair, the Daniel Wells.
Yeah, well, me and Rog had no ability to quickly snap it on the boat. Well, yeah, for me in terms of like the YouTube channel, obviously the training session was a good like foot in the door, but to jag a footy player for a goal kicking challenge, that was so much fun. And yeah, I think me and Rog did all right during that. How'd I run?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and watch the video. I'm probably due to go back and get stuck in the YouTube hole on your channel. One of the best YouTube channels out there.
No, it was fun. It was good fun. How's 2026 been for you? You've had a lot on, obviously. How are you sort of managing that transition out of footy, and what have you been up to?
Well, I've had a kid 3 weeks ago. That's taken up most of my time. I don't know how players, well, I do know how, but you probably need a spare room set up because your sleep does take a big hit. So if I was still playing, I'd be sleeping in the spare room quite a bit. I think particularly before games. Other than that, I've pretty much gone full-time Ball Magnets and a few other media opportunities sporadically with Seven, AFL, a few different ones. But I'm really enjoying going full time at BM and pushing out more content. We've obviously got the Titch and Guinea show, which is more of an analysis based show. So trying to give people the insight to the real nitty gritty of what's actually going on out there and how not much happens by fluke, and explaining what actually is going on the field. So really enjoying that show. The Ball Magnets pod, like just in recent shows, we've had Luke Hodge, Jimmy Bartel. Like these are the guys I grew up watching. It's like superstars. Monday Magnets with you lads, obviously. But yeah, I think I did struggle mentally when AFL didn't work out. I felt I had another year left in me at least. And yeah, that didn't work out. So I was sort of forced, my hand was forced to head in a new direction.
When you say it didn't work out, did you have offers, and like, was the decision, like, were you keen to continue your career anywhere? Like, was it sort of like any, like interstate, any club? Like, how come you didn't jag that next team?
I'd have to ask the list managers and recruiters. I thought my footy last year, I've got stuck in the VFL a little bit, but when I broke into the team, played pretty well. I was averaging 25 odd touches, six tackles, which is better than what I was averaging in 2023.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good year that year. So I thought my form warranted to play and go on again. And I think the perception out there was that I was injured, and because I wasn't getting picked that I was to finish. But within myself, I think I was in the best shape of my career last year.
Yeah, like I remember you coming back for pre-season, and it was like the slimmest you'd looked across like the years that I'd known you.
Yeah, well, that was when I came back, and then I had a little injury setback, but I wouldn't have missed the last 15 rounds of the season. And I was the moment that I reflect on, and the what if moment for me was I was so ready to go. If Pies made a granny, I would have been so ready to go. Like we played a pracky game in Geelong, which wasn't in the VFL. That wasn't publicised. It was a closed game because both teams were preparing for finals. So it was a practice game, but that was probably the best game I reckon I played in 5 years. But no one knows about it.
Did they keep stats or anything?
Yeah, they did. Or Collingwood saw the stats. I think I played 3 quarters, had 30, a goal, 10 tackles, 10 clearances. But it was the best I'd played. I reckon individual game, I was like, I felt like 2018. That's how it felt. So in my mind, I'm thinking, shit, if we get through to a granny and I'm playing, I'm gonna be in probably the best shape I've been in. I just didn't get the opportunity. And then Pendles went down in the prelim. So if we got through, I would have played.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what would have happened if I played. You play well. What that means, whether that, but it didn't work out. It didn't happen.
Yeah. No, it's sort of frustrating that, the perception like was almost as if you'd missed like the last 3 years when really you'd played pretty much all of last year. And if you had that form last year without missing the year before, you almost would be guaranteed another contract.
Yeah, I don't know what would have happened, but yeah, I think... I think when you're playing VFL, I actually found VFL harder than AFL because I was getting tagged every week in the VFL.
Yeah.
And it's not as clean. If you're playing as a regular mid in the AFL, that's easier than getting tagged at VFL level, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Because you just fit into a system. There's predictability. You know where to go. You can easily do what you got to do. At VFL, it's harder. If you got a hard tag, which I pretty much got every game at VFL level, it's actually harder to...
Yeah.
Because all the attention's on you, you know what I mean? It's hard to break free from that in a game that's not as clean.
Yeah, for sure. Was there a team that you felt like you were closest to? Like, potentially, is there a weird scenario where you're running around this year? Was there a team you felt you were probably closest to potentially getting a spot at?
The closest
in a hypothetical world?
In a hypothetical world, it was probably Essendon.
Wow.
Yeah, it's probably Essendon.
That's Tan's team.
Nothing clearly was ever official or offered, but just there was a potential for it to happen.
That's really cool. And that makes a lot of sense in my brain. Like seeing where Essendon are at, they've got a lot of young up-and-coming midfielders. Their contested side has struggled for a little bit from a leadership perspective. Like, hearing that makes a lot of sense in my head.
Yeah, well, I just had some brief conversations with Dean Cox, Andrew McQualter, and Brad Scott, like very service level chats. But I met with Brad Scott, but nothing came of it. But I think in the end, they were potentially going to see what happened with Will Setterfield and his foot, how that was going to look. But I think they were confident he was going to get back from injury. So that could have been a spot that opened up.
Yeah, wow, that's so intriguing, and it's crazy to think that a lot of those almost moments happen in the league. Like every year, there's even how random the draft is. I watch the draft retrospectively often, and it's crazy seeing everyone in the room without the club that you affiliate them with now. Like you'll be watching an old draft and Nat Fyfe's just chilling there in a polo, but little do you know that like any club could pick him at some point. Like there's so many random moments in AFL. I find that so interesting.
I think another one with timing is imagine if Tasmania came in this year.
Yeah,
It's sort of a year or two off. So
yeah,
there's all these little crossroad moments across your whole footy journey that things can go one way or the other. But yeah, would have loved to go on, but I'm also very happy and excited for this next big challenge. I also look at, and this is no disrespect to any specific player, but I do look at some teams, lower ranked teams, and think to myself, how am I not playing?
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm just being honest, like it just in my head, I'm just like, producers laughing at me. But
it's so true.
like, I don't know. I think there's a perception out there around the shiny new toy and athleticism and run, and you know that's the topical thing around the game at the moment is exactly that, and the rules channeling the game to that. But I still think guys can run and do all this great stuff and they can't hit a handball 3 meters or they're not skilled on both sides of their body. They don't make good decisions. So to me, having pure natural footballers who don't make those errors is more valuable than a guy that can run all day.
Well, that's what I'm finding right now watching the Melbourne Footy Club at the minute. Like we're so excited by Langford. We're so excited by Windsor. We obviously moved on a couple of big bulls in Petrarca and Oliver. But right now, every Windsor highlight I saw across the off-season, it was Jack Steele feeding it to him. And what I find is like, you know, Langford, I think, is incredible overhead. His foot skills are crazy.
Love how we've got to the D's chat.
Yeah. Crowbarred it in early. I'm in my comfort zone. Yeah. Like he's incredible, but some of his stuff below his knees needs a little bit of work. And you just see Jack Steele come in and he's that connective piece where he's just so clean. Every time he gets near it, it's so clean. And it's so valuable to enable Windsor and that to perform at their best.
Yeah, you're spot on. You probably need a combination of both, don't you? Inside players that complement outside. It's just, I'm watching a lot of footy at the moment, well, more than I probably have before because it's probably part of the job now in the media and different things. And yeah, like hand skills and ball handling is my one word. That's what I did. And decision making was what I made my career off. And I just, now that I'm watching the game closer, I'm just like far out. Like there's still a big gap there, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. How are you finding watching footy in 2026? It feels like it's a completely new game to what it was 6 to 12 months ago. Like a lot's changed.
Yeah, like a lot of new rules and different things.
Well, like the centre bounce, which is your one word, but like even them changing the way the rucks can interact has almost opened up centre clearances way more than we've ever seen it.
Yeah, we predicted this at the start of the year that would happen, and that the ball, if there's a dominant ruck at centre bounce, effectively the ball can get to space at the centre square more and trickle out, which allows guys to get out in space and run through the paint. I reckon early rounds we saw more guys than ever running through the paint, kicking goals. Yeah, which I hadn't seen that for a long time.
Yep.
So yeah, a few adjustments, but I think this is such a basic way to look at the game. But it's almost like the game is. I heard someone say it on the commentary for the Melbourne Carlton game. It might have been Nick Dalsano. They said this game's just going to be a matter of who can make less mistakes.
Yeah.
And so this is just such a simple way to look at footy. But I look at it as like you need guys who can break the game open and win it. But basically, good players don't make mistakes. I think good players, they have the ability to do the exceptional, but they also just make less mistakes. If you've simply got more good players that don't make errors, that's the game, I think. You just need guys that are going to make the right decision and execute, which just comes down to talent, I think.
Well, it's crazy because like Stephen King at the end of the game said, you know, last week when the D's conceded so much in the first quarter against Freo, it was off the back of Freo like sort of putting one on us. Like they rocked up with an intensity that we couldn't match. But he said this week against Carlton, our fundamentals were just so off the mark and we just invited mistakes and the Blues capitalised in that first quarter against us. And it's just crazy. You tidy up a little bit of that and you completely shift an entire game of football.
Yeah, but how often do you hear, we just got to be a bit more polished or a bit more clean? Like that.
It sounds so vague. I don't know how to explain
it, but it's like that is the game. Like you only get an opportunity to maybe make an error. Like you can't afford to make multiple. And I think you saw it in that game for both sides. Just like simple dropping a ball.
Yeah.
Like uncontested mark or a kick that's 20 meters or missing the ball completely. Like that's the game. You can't afford to make these errors, which I think they got highlighted more this game because there was so many of them. But
yeah.
That's what makes good teams. That's what makes good players is just reducing the amount of errors you make.
I think there's also a difference in, and I've just noticed it a lot this year is, especially with Jack Steele, watching Jack Steele, but we'll have players who want to rush a disposal for the sake of keeping the ball moving, but the rush disposal goes to a player's toes or up too high, so he has to reach up to get it. And even that split second of like putting your hand up to get disposal invites pressure, but like a Jack Steele literally puts it where you need it. And if you just execute that skill, it helps the next person execute the next skill and then you're out. Like there is value in executing just the basics, which is what you did really well across your whole career.
Yeah, I look at handballing a lot and I see guys handball, the ball doesn't spin correctly. They do a little like floater handball because I think it's assumed that because a player gets drafted, they know how to handball. Most guys in the AFL, well, not most, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the young guys that come in and get drafted, they can't handball opposite hand. Like they just don't have the skill to do it. And I still think senior guys don't have the skill to do it as well. And so when I see you talk about exactly that, inviting pressure, a handball that doesn't spin correctly, that floats, that takes half a second longer than into the next handball chain that might miss by half a metre, that's what allows the pressure, those little minuscule seconds. Where if you look at a Pendlebury or a Lachie Neale, their handballs pierce through the air and it's there within a split second, which means that guy's got an extra split second. Then if that's a talented player who hits the next one, like that's going to get out. But if these handballs have a bit of lag time, it allows the pressure to come in. I see it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And it's incredible that like, if a team focuses on the fundamentals, you can become a much better team in the AFL. I want to touch on like the Blues at the minute. Obviously you got a great football mind and there's a bit of a trend in their second halves. It almost, I don't know if you watched the game on Sunday, but I was there in the MCC. It almost felt like they were going to capitulate the entire time. Like they were up by 40 points. Connor Rogers is sitting next to me, a mad blue bagger, and he's like sort of squirming in his seat going, we need the next. And I'm like, mate, it's 40 points. You don't need the next. We need the next 10. Yeah. But he was so nervous that like the gap wasn't big enough and we're not capitalising on their pressure and their ascendancy that they had. Like if you were at the Carlton Footy Club, what are they experiencing and how does this trend keep happening?
Far out. I don't know if you had the answer. You'd be,
Michael Wells would be very fun.
Well, I didn't see the first half. I watched the last quarter. So
good quarter to tune in for.
Yeah, it was. But before that, so the first half were they playing pretty fast? It was free flow because it seems like a pattern.
To be honest,
watched the Sydney game where they were pretty good in the first half before they got blown out.
To be honest, they just locked it in. Like the first quarter it was 20 inside 50s to 5. We just couldn't move it and they just locked it in their front half.
Yeah. So I think want to be wary of making a big statement because I actually think they'll probably come out and win this week. They play Marvel pretty well. They play North. They'll probably win. So again, the monkey will be probably off the back next week.
Yeah.
But from what I saw in the last quarter, it was skills, decision making. They were the obvious. That was one obvious point. The next obvious one was potentially just a bit of fight and contest. Look at Melbourne wanted a bit more. Like, do you remember when Cully came in off the that ground ball? Like,
and Sam Walsh was best on ground, I thought, all game. He was phenomenal. And also with that action, because in that moment, Cully just burst through. Sam Walsh almost has to get out the way because he's just going to get him high. But it's like he couldn't really execute in a way to stop him. He was in this awkward position where he had...
definitely not a Sam Walsh issue. I love him. He's a star. He's a champion. And then there was just a few things which me and Guinea are actually going to... if you tune into...
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
We've got some clips where they're just not on the same page. So there's a mark where Lewis Young, I think, takes a mark and goes backwards.
Yeah.
So if you go backwards, you have to go round.
Yeah.
That's just
true.
You have to go round. They go back. They concede 30 metres. They've got to switch on. You have to go. So some players are programmed to this new game style they're trying to play where they open the ground up and go fast and wide.
Yeah.
Ollie Hollands went into 2025 mode of, no, we're a long down the line team. So then you've got him with a 30-metre backwards kick, lose territory, half the system's to the open side.
Wow.
Less of the system is down the line. He goes down the line and then that's the goal to Fritsch.
Yep.
And then there's another play we'll unpack with Kasaya's goal, which is just a decision-making error from the back half. I think it's Cowan tries to hit a short 50-50. He just doesn't need to take it.
Gets chopped off by Howes.
And then gets them into a pressured situation, which ends up in Cozzy's goal sealer. So
just a couple of decisions is inviting the pressure.
Is the game. So they clearly don't have enough players that are smart enough that can execute.
Yeah.
To know what to do.
Yeah.
You need players that know what they're doing.
And then it would feel like the walls are closing in on them because it's happened to them so many times that like it just would feel.
That's the other part. Like they've got obviously great leaders, but how many experienced players do they have across the board that say this isn't happening, or like tough mental minds? They've probably got a handful.
Yeah.
Clearly not enough of them.
Yeah.
Because there's other teams in the comp which wouldn't allow it to happen. And I heard a great comment. Michael Voss in his playing days wouldn't have allowed it to happen. Yeah. There's not much he can do as a coach.
Must be frustrating for Vossy on the boundary.
Yeah. At least, I don't know.
I think they look like a pretty good team across the board. Like I always sort of gauge on, and you can't always judge a team on this, but I'm looking across the park and Hewitt's enormous. Cripper's enormous. Walshy's enormous. Jagger looks like a 200-game player. They physically look good to go. So, yeah, it doesn't really feel like a fitness standpoint, but it just keeps happening for the Baggers.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it is a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. Every team's pretty fit. It has to be something mental as well, where they feel the internal pressure because it keeps happening.
I feel bad. I like the Blues. I always whip them home for Rog, and yeah, it was a pretty funny day at the G on Sunday. We've talked a little bit about ball magnets. I want to get into it way more with you because you almost started building this brand 4 or 5 years before obviously you departed AFL footy. What was like the initial sort of motivation to start building like Ball Magnets, the app, the brand? And it's obviously shifted to more of like a media company now, but was it something you were interested in doing at like from the start, being in the media? And
yeah, it wasn't originally to be in the media at all. It was, we thought there was a gap to, when we talk about execution of skill and craft, to educate in that regard. And the reason we created an app was actually because COVID hit and everyone who played footy, coached footy, involved with footy couldn't actually get together to train. So we tried to create a lot of content around drills you could do yourself with a partner, small groups.
Yep.
To running programs to improve your game while you couldn't get together with your team. And so we went heavily down the path of building the app, which we still have. I'm not sure if we'll switch it on later on down the track, but eventually we figured out we can't do everything because we were doing the podcast to complement the app and let everyone know these are the drills and the training programs we're releasing. Then the podcast got a lot of traction and interest.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well.
And you can almost share, like, obviously the app, you know, had drills and tips and tricks, but you can almost share those anecdotes through podcasts as well.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether we'll ever, we own the technology and the IP and everything for that, whether we'll use that again. But in the end, we really enjoyed the podcasting and then in the network of the AFL industry, the people we could get access to and have great chats with. And we were even learning ourselves that we found a bigger passion in the pivot to the media company. So that's what it's become.
And it's almost started to help like your media endeavors. Is that something you want to do post footy? Obviously, when you talk about all the tactics and stuff, you sound like a coach. And I think like you are very good at coaching people. So right now, is it a bit of a coin flip between, you know, doing some media stuff or doing some coaching?
Yeah, I've been asked this a few times. I think having been around a footy club environment for 14 years, probably a little bit longer because I was involved with the Swans when I was 16 and 17, so probably 16 years.
Wow.
I just wanted to do something different. I want to do something different now. Like I know what it's like to be involved in an AFL club. I know how every meeting would be run. I don't feel like I would learn a lot. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. You would learn a lot being a coach because it's just a different thing and you got to manage people and things. But I think in terms of seeing the game, a lot of the, say, midfield meetings are not dumbed down, but you have to be able to explain things so that everyone can understand. So it doesn't really excite me as much because I feel like I've got a good grasp on footy knowledge. So I want to just do something completely different, get out of footy club land. Maybe the door will be open down the track to get into coaching because I think I could do it. But yeah, media excites me. Like it's just watching the game through a different lens. It's presenting, it's being under pressure in real time when you're live. Like that sort of gives a bit of the adrenaline. So yeah, I prefer media. I just think I've been around footy and know how it works. I want to increase knowledge base and do something completely different for a bit.
Did you have any aspirations growing up, like to be in media? Well, obviously, when I was running around the backyard, I was kicking the goals, but almost commentating myself kicking the goals. And then when I grew up a little bit, I got a little recording video camera. So I'm kicking the goals, recording myself and doing the commentary. And obviously out of those three, the football part didn't happen, but now I'm almost doing the stuff that I did in the backyard, filming myself. I'm almost doing that for a living. So growing up, were you interested in not journalism, but like the bright lights of the media a little bit?
No, I was interested in the bright lights of playing.
Yeah.
That's what I always wanted to do. So that was the goal since I can remember. And I know media, it's come out of nowhere, to be honest.
Wow.
It's come out through the podcast. And I look back at podcasting and interviews I've done when I first started. If you look back from then to now, like anything, it's like, wow, I've improved a lot and made a lot of inroads, but it was never a goal. It's just, it's just the path that I was put on. But
from here on in, is there any like goals within like the media that you have that you're interested in? Like, would you like to do more stuff on games? Are you interested in panel shows? Anything like that?
I think a bit of a mix. I actually really enjoy the panel shows. I think I prefer them more than games.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that live element. I've done a lot of special comments with Channel 7, 3AW, panel shows. Potentially an idea I haven't explored yet that I think could be cool is streaming games and doing your version of covering a game and what you're seeing for a whole game.
Watch-alongs are like one of the coolest things in media, I think.
Yeah, well, I did one with Dylan Alexander and the True Footy boys, which I really enjoyed. So whether it would get enough traction, clearly free to air and these big channels are going to get the attention because it's the quality product of things. But I don't know, having a recent pulse on the game and just being out of it and having good intel in terms of what's going on, it's something I've thought about in the back of my head. Not sure how you'd execute, but we could do something together, Dossel.
Oh, I know how to execute. I used to do them back in the day. 2019, I started watching the footy and streaming it because I'd seen it done overseas, and you're not actually competing with the coverage.
Did you get enough people watching? How many would you get on board?
Back in the day, I was like 200, and to get concurrent stream, like people on the stream, it's actually really hard. So that's why like the True Footy boys, they're getting like, well, I know their draft show when they were streaming was getting like 1,000, like, and I think that's incredible. But I was getting like 200 live and then maybe 10,000 across a whole stream. But you're not actually competing with the coverage. What it is people don't have someone to watch the game with, and you're almost like a companion because they can chat to you and you see most of the chat. So you're sitting there going, oh, Gary, yeah, Guinea's been awesome. And then they're sitting at home feeling like they're talking to someone, and I think it's an unbelievable way to do media.
Even when comments pop up and you can integrate with people, I think that's really cool. There might be a question or a comment and spark debate. So you can't do that in commentary.
That person at home, and that's why like it's such a sort of cool connection. That person at home goes, great, I'm watching the footy with Tommy Mitchell, because live we're actually talking about talking about the same thing. It makes them feel like there's someone in their house.
We should look into it.
Yeah, 100%. Like I love that side of it. I'm so impressed with the Guinea show. You spoke for a little bit about doing something with Guinea, and like 12 months later, it's not what I thought it would be, because Guinea recently on the coverage sort of joked like, oh yeah, I'm a bit of a footy nerd, but I didn't get that vibe from him because he is too cool for school and, you know, he loves his stuff outside of footy. But seeing the way that he breaks down the games, and also you do, it feels like one of the like almost landmark moments that this is a bit of a shift in footy.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that people are seeing this side of Guinea, because I've always known how smart he is with his knowledge.
Well, he plays smart.
He plays smart, but like you said, he gives off the vibe that he's a pretty carefree guy. He's not he is a footy nerd. He loves watching footy. He knows everything about footy. Like he was like us growing up. He knew every player. He knows everything. So,
well, one of my pet peeves is, and I completely get it, because sometimes when I'm in the trenches making YouTube videos, I don't want to watch other YouTube videos. So I understand when your job is footy that you might fall out of love with it. But I really hate when they ask a footballer like, oh, you know, who's your favourite player? Or yeah, and they sort of like, I don't watch footy, like I don't care. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like you got to, I know it would be hard, but you got to keep the love for it.
Yeah. I think the best players watch enough footy to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you need a balance, right? You need to be able to switch off to get away from it, to
100%.
come back energized. But I know Nick Dacos watches footy. He knows the detail around players and teams. Jack Inman does. I'm sure all the best players do. They just do a bit extra of everything to get the edge. So they have to do the work to get that, if that makes sense. But I think showing this side of Guinea, we'd spoken for years about doing something together. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be this, because he's such a character and people love seeing that character. I thought it was going to be something more jovial and fun. And I would sort of be the guy that just gets Guinea to be Guinea and say this funny shit. But it's pivoted to, I think when I left the game, wanting to do something around analysis and showing the knowledge, not showing the knowledge I have, but sharing the knowledge with everyone and breaking down the minute details of things in game that players are seeing and what's actually going on, rather than a fan with, you know, not a huge amount of knowledge. You're just watching the game and you're watching the ball, but breaking down the little moments, and then having a current player in Guinea to do it with, and someone that's really smart. I think we've got a good little thing going.
Well, what I love about it is you assume that the viewer is in on it, and like you sort of explain stuff to us that when you explain it, I understand. And I'm like some of the stuff you break down, like when you explained like the in and out, like how a player moves up to like the player coming forward and then you cut left. And I'm like, I see that happen so often in the game, but I don't assume it's intentional. I just assume that they're just running around. So that makes me almost question my knowledge of the game. Like I have a really basic knowledge of the game, even as a footy nerd, compared to people who've been in the industry. But what I like about it, the show that you guys have, is like years ago, Jordan Lewis, when he first got on Fox Footy, I think he's amazing now, but he would almost explain stuff in special comments for your grandma watching. Like he'd almost be like, oh, the reason they're going to switch it is to try and get it out to the outer side. And I'm like, oh, that's really valuable for people who don't really know the game. But I understand that. So you guys do it in a way that's like not condescending. And
so you want to find the balance of that too, don't you? You want to be not service level, giving nothing away, boring, but not too high level where you're using language that people were like, what does that term mean? So it's finding somewhere in the middle where even if you use a term that's like the up and out play, but having a bit of text to explain it, showing on the whiteboard as well how it works, then showing footage. So doing that. But I think we're going for more high detail than less detail, because I think that's what people crave. Is
people are craving
they want to
that.
crave what they don't know.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. From a business standpoint, you know, you've built something that hasn't been done before in the industry. Potentially, if it grows, there would be networks or people that would want to buy it and want to put that on their own channels. Do you ever think about that from a business standpoint, about the value of owning it, having it on your YouTube channel? You can bring brands in, you can dictate what you do with the show, versus almost like the instant gratification potentially of selling it to, I don't know, AFL, Fox Footy, Channel 7, but then you might lose some control over it.
Yeah. We haven't had any offers, so we don't have to worry about that.
I genuinely, in the next 12 to 18 months, if not sooner, it'll come, because it is a massive innovation in the league. Or we're going to see a show like it on Fox Footy and they're going to copy you. That's just what happens in the industry.
To be honest, I've built it just out of passion and loving creating content and working with guys like yourself and putting the knowledge and everything you have towards something, and creating something like you said for yourself or for a group of people is really appealing. Like when someone comes up to me on the street and says, and you'd get this with your YouTube channel, someone comes up on the street and says, oh mate, I love Ball Magnets, I love your podcast. That's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And it happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
That do you experience the same?
Yeah. And it's amazing because you feel like the connection you can build across social media. I even think like with a podcast, because they're hanging around with you for 50 minutes a week, they really do get to know you. So, yeah, I think that connection, with your audience is so important.
Well, I'm finding that comment more rewarding than people saying, "Oh, you're a gun player," because like I dedicated my life to footy, and people saying that was cool, but I put the work in. But I think I've been identified as a footy player, but wanting to be more than that. Now that I'm dedicating to be something else, and people are giving recognition, saying, "Hey, I love this," that feels super cool.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Has there been, like, obviously, you know, when you leave school, there's a bit of a hole, the structure's different, you can feel a little bit lost. Have you experienced any of that post-footy? I know, you know, Cooper Hamilton's been pretty transparent with his transition out of the game, and, you know, Dill Buckley was super transparent with his as well. You had longer careers than those boys. You had more acclaimed career where you might feel a little bit more satisfied, but has there been a sense of emptiness or anything like that you might not have anticipated?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, I will get deep into this at some point, I think, whether it's a podcast or a book or something.
Put it in the book.
Put it in the book, yeah. But no, it's definitely, especially with footy just starting, it has been a day-to-day struggle, feeling like you should be. Again, I'm not going to be a guy that's salty and spit the dummy. It didn't work out. I gave myself every chance for it to work out, got myself in the best physical condition. That's all I could have done, you know, was out of my hands in terms of the decision. But yeah, it's a day-to-day struggle until you keep finding more passions and your purpose and all those things, which still are ongoing and always trying to develop. But yeah, it's a hard thing. Like, you hear players when they say they get to the end, and guys struggle with a range of issues, and I don't have any real problems, but it's a day-to-day thing of, it's hard to get your head around.
What have you filled, like, your weeks and your time in with? And where does fitness come into it as well? Because obviously fitness is such a massive, like, help for mental health, but also structure. But then almost like you see the Olympic swimmers who have swam for 15 years and then they never get in a pool again. So I wouldn't begrudge you for never getting in a gym again, but it's also so important for structure and mental health that it would help to keep some of that sort of fitness as well. So, like, how have you, like, juggled all that?
So the first month when I didn't get selected by another team, I was still training like an AFL player for a month, because it was just how I've been programmed. My off season is you train yourself into the ground. I did that up until the New Year period, because I was like, it's just what I've done. I'm programmed to do this. Like, I'm running 3 times a week, doing 3 or 4 gym sessions and everything else. And then I think when you then shift your focus to something else, which, let's just say it's ball magnets or having a kid.
Yeah.
Let's just say you've got 12 hours in a day while you're awake. You dedicate, let's say prior to that, it was, say, 6 hours a day to your footy, maybe more. I'm not sure. I'm just using this as an example. Footy's it's not there anymore. So, you know, therefore your time that you would exercise is say cut in half, because you got to dedicate more time to business or family. So you naturally just can't stay as fit because there's less time to do so, if that makes sense. When you're in an elite environment, it's almost easy to stay fit and in peak condition because the training's all set up for you. You rock up, it's all done for you.
All you have to do is lift it.
Literally. You just got to go in and lift it or run it. And you're doing it with a group of people. Like, when you're trained by yourself in footy, there's only so much you can do. So you can not fall off a cliff, but I actually have had a reflection and a lot of respect for guys that are not in the AFL system that find a way in, because they're working, they don't have the resources at the time, and when you're in it, it's actually the easiest thing. It's just decision about how hard you're going to do the work. It's here it is, do it. When you're out of it, it's almost harder because you don't have the resource to, you know, the people to train with, the quality of people to train with, the equipment, it's not all done for you. So that's been a big eye opener for guys that come and do it the hard way. It's hard. It would be hard.
You're going to have to roll into an Anytime Fitness and
exactly.
and bump people off the squat racks. It's obviously a challenge for anyone transitioning in and out of industry. It's been such a commitment, such a dedication for a long part of your life, like since you were like 16 pretty much.
Probably younger. Yeah, like I remember the first thing I remember wanting to do was play AFL, because Dad played AFL, and So my earliest memories are going to Auskick, wearing my Carlton jumper, and then being obsessed with footy cards, and then just the dream was from as early as I can remember. I reckon before 5, like I want to play AFL.
Yeah, wow.
And you dedicate, what's that? So if you've almost 30 years to that's what you do, and then you just got to switch it off. It's hard to switch it off.
Is there, I guess, in the pursuit of excellence, and perfectionism, you almost are never satisfied. But I wonder where your satisfaction sits compared to other players, considering you achieved everything you could in the game. Like, you're not sitting here going, oh, fuck, the premiership would have been good. Tick. Oh, geez, I wish I won a BNF. Tick, tick, tick. Oh, geez, the Brownlow would have been. It's like you achieved it all. So, does that sort of let you rest your head on the pillow a little bit easier?
Yeah. Well, I would say I am a perfectionist, and so it actually doesn't. Like I feel like I feel like I've failed myself or fallen short. To be honest, I'm not saying that to be arrogant. That's genuinely how I feel.
Yeah,
you naturally, and this isn't the right thing to do, but you compare yourself to. I see a lot of guys, whether it be in your draft class or around you. Like I put the work in. I had injuries and things didn't work out, but I put the work in to play 300. I wanted to play 300.
Yep.
Would have loved to play in another grand final. I missed out on playing in 10 finals. I missed out on 2 grand finals.
Yeah.
Missed out on a premiership. There's other individual things that that are great when they come, but I missed out on a lot as well. And so failure isn't the right word because I did everything I could.
Yeah.
But I still look at it like within myself, I'm like I don't want to sound unappreciative, but I wish the way I'm wired, and I'm sure a lot of guys are, is like I feel like I failed because I don't think I did enough. I feel like I put the more work in to achieve more.
That is like the mindset of people who achieve great things though. Like that would be a common thread in everyone who's achieved like incredible things. So it is sort of eye-opening to hear that, but it's also not surprising.
It's a great question, Dos. I've never been asked it, but it's been something I've thought about a lot.
Would you trade?
You want to be grateful for the things. Like it's a pretty unique club. I think someone told me that when I finished, only 25 players have won a Brownlow and a premiership in the history of the game.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty special club. Like
only 2 players have had 54 touches.
Yeah. So there's all these amazing things, but naturally you strive. Like I played 200 games, but I just got there.
Yep.
Like I feel like if you're around for 14 years like that, you have the potential to play 300. So that's the one. Like I would have loved to have played more. Like in my Sydney days, I wasn't getting picked. Then I break my leg literally when I'm at my absolute best. I'm like, fuck. And then at the end, it doesn't end how I want it. So every chapter didn't work out how I planned it to.
Would you trade one of the accolades for 300 games? Was 300 games more important than the Brownlow or a premiership, or?
Probably not, because I guess the games, you want to play quality games. You don't just want to play games for the sake of games.
Yep.
It's just, I think when I started that, if I'm being deadly honest, I set out, that's what I wanted to do. That was one of the things I wanted to do and fell short of it.
Yeah. Nah, that is incredibly eye-opening. And as I said, like it is a surprise that someone who's achieved what you achieved does feel that, but it's also not, because that's the mindset that the great people have. Tommy, thanks for being so honest and stopping by the Kados & Co pod. We've taken up more time than we should have, but I really appreciate it, and can't wait to see you kick goals for the next, forever how long in the media industry and whatnot. Because
let's create another YouTube video where it's past player versus non-player. I reckon you have my measure at the moment.
I wonder if the graph, like whether, I'm closing the gap.
You've been closing the gap?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't run around since our grand final last year, so the gap's probably getting wider.
Yeah, we'll do that. We're due for some more content.
Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it. Daniel Son, you're on the video pod.
Yeah. This is a stitch up. We've just replaced Tom Mitchell for me after I said I don't want to be on any of the video pods.
Yes, and I've forced you in. Obviously, Tommy had about 40, 45 minutes with us, but I could put out a 45-minute ep, and maybe I should for watch time, but I sort of want to tick this over to an hour, so D. Allen is going to hop in for a mini of a mini within a longie.
This is an actual mini, Kados & Co mini. Watch time has just plummeted. This is the spike on the graph we get is probably down here, or it's up here when they find out that I won the second half and who's Tom Mitchell. What a chat!
Well, that's a coup for the pod. You know, as much as I love Cookson, it was great. Like I've been fishing around to land a prominent figure in the sporting and media landscape. So for Tommy to give up his time, ridiculous, like so nice. And, you know, I hate the first 10 minutes of pods. Listening to them, like when I listen to podcasts, I normally skip through to at least 7 or 8 minutes in. I hate them meandering at the start of podcasts. Any podcasts, I just always skip.
I think in the first 10 minutes of that Tom Mitchell podcast, he had told us that Essendon almost signed him. He had told us how his career wrapped up, and he'd also told us that VFL's harder than AFL. So, like, he'd actually given us 3 of our best scoops of the podcast.
Yeah.
In the first 10. But yeah, your logic isn't flawed, and you're my boss.
Well, so I don't really like listening to the first, maybe 10 minutes is strong, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, just that first sort of awkward, like to and fro. Yeah. I am like self-conscious that when I do make podcasts, I'm like, fuck, I'm so bad in the first couple of minutes. And I felt like I was really bad just then.
I think you were really good. I
felt good.
Yeah. I don't think today's a great example of it because I actually think you knew that you were under a bit of a time crunch. I actually reckon you wheeled and goed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So back yourself in.
Maybe the 45 minutes.
2026. It's the year you start loving yourself.
Well, I'm 4 months in and I despise myself, so I'm going to have to turn it around.
I think you did good.
I felt like I got into the rhythm and the flow of it, but just those first few questions, like when I was asking, like I wanted to ask a bit more concisely, hey man, Tommy, you know, what was it like to be out of the industry? Did you think you were close with a footy club? But I find it awkward. Like he doesn't want to answer that. So I'm like trying to tiptoe around it. And the more I tiptoe, I lose a little bit of rhythm. But he was like happy to answer it and just, because I'm not here wanting a scoop, but I'm also like, I'm actually intrigued as like a friend of Tommy. Like, how did it all pan out?
Well, I think you were mentioning just as we were changing over that you find it, the whole purpose of this podcast is you want to sit down and have a yarn.
Yeah.
So when it's a back and forth, it's a lot easier, but to get that back and forth going, you have to write a few questions down and ask them.
And I feel like I got into the rhythm of the back and forth.
Yeah.
But early on, it's like I'm peppering him with questions and I'm feeling self-conscious that I'm peppering him with questions. And they're questions about like, oh, why aren't you on an AFL list? And I'm like, I don't want to ask him that, but I am also intrigued. So it's just this fine little balance to walk the tightrope.
Isn't this unique? People have just like, seriously, how cool is this? People have just listened to a podcast and then straight after the podcast, we've turned the cameras back on and you're like, we're going into how you felt on that. I reckon that's really cool. I just thought like, it's just clicked to me what we're doing. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That is, yeah, this is like the post-game press conference. Yeah, so, I knew I had Tommy on the ropes early in the first 5 and then he won back some momentum. And
all right, so we have to break down a couple of things from this Tommy pod. I said I wasn't going to mention it again. And I could be wrong here and I could be talking out of emotions. He talked to Brad Scott.
Yeah, so obviously a big theme in the minis is that Dan's a massive Essendon supporter. Do we play the voiceover that we got this week?
Yeah. Play that.
Okay. So a big theme on the minis has been Essendon. I almost want to bring a new segment to you. I want to get your idea on it, where it's either positive Essendon chat only.
Yep.
Where every week, no matter the result for the rest of the season on the minis, we have like a segment dedicated to what we liked. So say you play the Bulldogs, you lose by 100.
Let's not start on this week.
You lose by...
We're not starting.
You lose by 120, and then the next week on the pod, we just go, oh, geez, Farrow was clean off the halfback line. Like, okay. So I'm either proposing a positive Essendon segment, or what else could we do?
I hope that doesn't. I hope I never come across as trying to pot the team or pot the players. It's just
you should
dire.
It is dire
because they all have worked a lot harder than I have to get where they are. But it's just really bad, and it's been really bad for long. But I think a bit of positivity around the club on the socials, even if it's to our few viewers, would be really good. So I'm happy with that.
So obviously we had a voice message during the week from Bood, who does some good, does some great AFL content.
Yep.
He does some gaming stuff. He makes like the graphics on TikTok. Whenever you see like a blind ranking and it's really clean, like in TikTok graphics, it's made for Bood. So he's a prolific content creator, but he reached out and sent a voice message. When he sent this, like I was actually nervous. He's like, hey mate, like, you know, there's something on the pod I want to, and I was like, Jesus, like, have I put my foot in it?
Does his anxiety again?
Yeah. Anxiety is controlling me.
Mate.
Oh, geez, sorry. It's our first voice message and I've gone early there.
We'll overlay this in post.
Really? You don't think this will be good enough?
No, we can probably do
I've got a Rodecaster here with about 10 inputs that I could somehow get this voice recording into, but I'm playing it into my mic. Anyway, this was Bood's voice message to the pod. Take it away.
Kados, mate, love the pods. Regular listener here, especially on the long runs. Just one thing on your most recent pod, though. The first 10 or 15 minutes, I think you know where this is going. As a diehard Essendon fan, don't appreciate it. Can't escape the depression zone that we're in, especially listening for that for 10 to 15 minutes. So wouldn't mind if you boys just stay clear of talking about the Bombers in the near future, unless we win. But I don't see that happening. Anyway, have a good day, mate. Bye.
So he's like spluttering and sort of like, he's obviously come off his long run. So when he goes on the long runs, he chucks us in his ears. But firstly, Bood, apologies, because
I think I mentioned a similar thing that I was falling down a rabbit hole, and every like few minutes I was like, I don't want to be talking about.
I think we went for like 15 minutes on them. And that's too long.
Yeah, it was too long. And yeah, putting it out there socially made it a bigger part of my frontal cortex. I don't know if that's how it works, but yeah.
So I think I do want to talk about the Bombers because it's just such a funny through line, especially with you on the pod. But I'm willing to, you know, if Bood's tuning in, I'm willing to spin it positively.
I'm happy with that.
So maybe every mini we do one positive about the Bombers that we saw from the weekend.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy.
Not starting this weekend.
Yeah. It wasn't me that brought them up this week. It was Tom Mitchell. So don't blame me.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into it. How did you feel when Tom Mitchell, who says he's physically at his peak, because like I know Tommy just touched on it, but he'd missed a year, essentially a whole year at 31 because of his foot, and then last year he didn't play much AFL, but his injury was cleared, so he's actually like through the foot injury, where he's ready to go. So it's just a bit of a frustrating timing for him, where if the foot, you know, didn't break down and then he had played all of last year, he would probably have another season or two at the top level. So Tom Mitchell's sitting here saying, I'm at my physical peak, I'm ready to go, and the Bombers have inquired. How did you feel when you heard that?
Look, I'll look at this completely and transparently. I reckon last year, if you'd said they'd sat down with Tom Mitchell, he's not going to get a contract at Collingwood, we want to sign him, I'll be like, Tom Mitchell, he's probably past it.
Yeah.
Why would that's not going to solve anything? Hearing him talk today and
seeing how the team's
panned out.
Yeah.
Even if he was past it, like the experience here, like we're looking at Essendon and our most experienced head, Zach Merritt, doesn't seem like he's going to be at the Zach Merritt we know every week because of what's going on, is my guess. Tom Mitchell talked about how important skills are and having a senior figure is, and I've looked at how the team's performed, and there's probably players that would miss out on a spot to put him in, and even if he performs at the same level, you're getting the experience of Tom Mitchell. So if you'd asked me last year, I'd be like, well, that is a waste of time. But I also think currently, with how crazy things look out there, if he's telling me, I can only go off Tom Mitchell's word that he felt as good as he ever had, and obviously he's going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, yes, we probably should have him on our team.
And like, I think you lack leaders across the board. So
they want to leave the club, mate. They're trying to get out. Yeah.
So to have like a Tommy Mitchell in there with the young midfield, would have been incredible. I just loved that hypothetical. What he said, Dean Cox had a chat to him. That would have been funny, him back at Sydney. And then who was the other person? Dean Cox. Oh, Andrew McGualter, West Coast.
And Scottles.
It's pretty crazy that...
shout out Brad Scott.
He was
through it.
Oh, geez, he's copping it. I feel bad for...
I agree.
Yeah.
Shout out Brad Scott.
I feel bad for Vossi.
Yeah, my positive. We all die someday.
Oh, just doesn't fill you with hope. What else do we touch on the mini of the mini?
I reckon my biggest take from that was the VFL comment about how he thought that obviously if you're getting a tag in AFL, that's probably the hardest role in the game. But he said if you're just a standard midfielder in the AFL, that copying a tag in the VFL is actually harder. What did you think about that?
It makes so much sense. And also, like, the players in the VFL around you are not going to give you as much support as Pendlebury, De Goey, Dacos. So, like, it makes sense that when you're on hands and knees in the VFL with three blokes really conscious of your impact, that it is going to be tougher. Like, AFL is... It's like an up and back, like, skillful, like, game of Australian rules footy, when VFL's like a stodgy, like, contested...
Still the second best
slow. Yeah, but I can understand how, like, the clean end-to-end sort of champagne football style in AFL would be easier.
Do you reckon that translates to, like, you know, when you see a Gary Ablett or... Because we went up and watched Gary Ablett, I want to say it was up towards Creswick. He played a few years ago, and he didn't tear the game apart. Like, he would have obviously been one of the best players out there, but he didn't have 40 touches and 8 goals. And you think, shit, Gary Ablett, even if he was 5 years out of his career up at that level, should tear the game apart. But do you reckon that part of that is because they aren't getting the service and it is so much worse than what they're used to playing that they don't just go in and just rip the game to pieces? Like, whereas, say you compare it to a sport like NBA. If you're an NBA player and you've been out of the league for a couple of years and then you move and go play some guys at the gym, because it's a five-a-side game, you can probably quite easily just dominate yourself. But in footy, you often see players go play local and they're not, like, breaking the game to absolute pieces that you would expect them to.
Well, with footy, there's actually just a cap on your performance. Like, there's only so much you can do. I remember, similar to what you just said then, I watched Nathan Jones at Port Arlington a year after he played, or maybe 2 years after he played AFL. I think it might have been a year. The year he retired, he played at Port Arlington. And in my head, I'm like, well, Port Arlington are a pretty awful side in the BFL, which is the second division league in Geelong. So in my head, I'm going, Nathan Jones is going to get 65 touches. Yeah. And I think he had 30 and kicked 2 or 3, which is a phenomenal game, and it's best on ground. But he could only conjure up 30 and 3 in a game of footy because it's still a game of footy. I just found it so fascinating. And, like, if Nick Dacos played Division 1 at the VAFA, in your head you go, he would have 120 touches. But it's weird that in a game of football, he would probably only have, like, he'd probably have 50. But, like, it's not 80. Like, it's only slightly more. You know, he would have 50, but someone else in the VAFA would have 32. So it's just so weird that, like, in this sport, there is a cap on how much you can actually influence because there's so many players on the field. Like, if it is basketball, I feel like an NBA player going and playing local basketball could actually have 120. But in footy, you're still limited because there's just a million players running around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very good way to look at it. He did touch on something else that I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember, so I don't think I wanted to talk about it that much.
Well, I love what he's doing with ball magnets.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm on the Monday Magnets. It's my second pod every Monday, and so much fun. Like, it's me, Baz, Tails, just chewing the fat. And just, like, the infrastructure and the systems that Tommy's implemented to build ball magnets is incredible. Bailey McCabe's a big part of that. And I like... Something I didn't mention too, Tommy, is, like, always looks after me. Like, I did some stuff with him where I vlogged going to the Brownlow, and he was taking us up to some of the rooms, and the Hawks boys are getting ready, and they're having a couple of beers, and their wives are getting the makeup done. And, you know, there was times where, like, we're in the elevator and some of the players are almost like, who are these jabronis coming up with this to film content? And Tommy, like, always, like, puts an arm around us and goes, oh no, these guys are the real deal. Like, always taking us seriously. I think throughout the industry at times, you know, you might get a gig with the AFL and you have to convince them, no, I can make some good content. Or you might get a gig somewhere else. And it's like, there's so much convincing in this industry where like if Tommy Mitchell co-signs you, it opens the door for you. Because like off the back of this podcast, if I hit up other people in the industry and they see some of the reels from it and they go, oh, fuck, if it's good enough for Tom Mitchell, it's good enough for me. So like he probably, like on one hand, it's great to have a yarn with someone that, you know, has accomplished what he's accomplished. But on the other hand, like it will open doors for us and it has before. And that's something like I really appreciate from him. Always looks after us.
Yeah, he had a lot of time, even off air, chatting about the things he was doing, which I won't go into detail about, but just how he was asking you what you thought about things and if you could help with certain things or would be interested in helping in certain things. As I said, I won't go into detail, but just the way that he spoke to you says a lot about his character and how highly he regards the people he works with. And you are right. Sometimes I've seen it. You work with these people and they haven't taken the time to, because they've achieved so much.
Yeah.
They haven't taken the time to learn about who you are, what you do, and appreciate your body of work. But in the brief time I spent with him just then, he seemed, obviously he was talking about the videos and spoke highly about your YouTube channel on the podcast. But before we even went to air, him just discussing things with you showed a real sense of, you know, knowledge and care about who you are, what you do and your craft, which is really nice to see because you rarely do see it when you're working with people of his caliber. Not to say that they don't think those things, but how outward, and obviously you've worked with him really closely, so it's probably a bit different.
But I think the reason I've worked with him closely is because, he does look after us. Like, almost in like a big brother way, just goes like, and I think the thing that we have in common is we are footy nuffies. So like Tom Mitchell isn't a too cool for school, I don't even watch footy type guy. He comes to us and we talk about forgotten players and like random niche players, and he loves the numbers game, and I like that. Like I think maybe 6 years ago it might be too uncool to do this stuff, but Tom Mitchell sort of embraces, you know, giving everyone a crack, and it's just awesome. I'm just so thankful that we were able to get him on the pod. To wrap up, probably another 5-10-ish minutes, but do we talk about my career existential crisis last week?
Well, I want to touch on Tom Mitchell once, and we'll come back to that because you said the word nuffy. I think I want to highlight what him and Guinea are doing, which he is defining what a footy nuffy is. People that know the numbers, they know the players, they know all that, which you'd class yourself at. But he's really letting people know that you're just a nuffy. You're not an analyst. Like the things that they do, and you broke down the pod, makes you realize, oh shit, I know nothing about what's going on out there.
The gap between someone who's been in the industry and someone who hasn't is crazy. And like a lot of these shows will break down a player not being accountable for a player in one play for the whole game. And they'll go, he should have been there and why wasn't he there? And little do you know, I was talking to Miles Shepherd about this. In footy, it's a game of imperfections. Like there are missed kicks. Nick Dacos turns it over. Everyone turns it over. Great players miss set shots. It's a game of imperfection. Sometimes your structure's slightly off. Sometimes you get blocked and you don't get to get a hand on and be accountable for a player. And Miles was saying internally at footy clubs, it's about whether it's a pattern. Like, have you been outbodied 5 times a game? Maybe you got outbodied once and, you know, one of the shows will be like, look, he got outbodied. He's a shit defender. But really, if you showed the whole game, you cut across, you got a fist in, you were accountable, but in one moment it looks really bad. So Miles says it's about, is there a pattern? And I feel like a lot of these shows who hang players out to dry don't sort of reference or include the context of like, there's just imperfections everywhere. Like you could get the tape up, show Nick Dacos missing a set shot and be like, this guy sucks. And if people didn't watch the game, they wouldn't know that he's the best player.
That's a stretch.
Yeah. I think just by the look of him, you'd be like, he's a thoroughbred. But it's crazy. Yeah. How, I don't know, people can pick and choose, take stuff out of context and frame players in certain ways. But the show that he's developing is one of the coolest innovations in footy media that we've seen.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I know nothing about what's going on out on the field.
Oh man, I know nothing. I know absolutely
Especially
nothing.
when I'm watching Essendon North Melbourne. I really know nothing. Actually, I know everything at that stage.
Yeah.
At that stage, I'm basically Nick Dacos. No, I'm not. And one positive from that game was the crowd. Good attendance for two struggling clubs. So that's my positive. Back to your existential crisis.
Wow. I don't know. I just love sharing this stuff. Like, it's not all, as Tom Mitchell, spoke about, he's got a Brownlow and a premiership, and he goes, I feel like I failed. What we've been working on is to get more consistent content, get the YouTube back humming. We're so close. We're so close, but it's also just not quite there. So I've just felt a little bit of pressure with that in recent times. And I got to a point last week where I'm like, I don't know. I'll at the end of last week, I felt like I need to make some big moves. I need to make some big moves to get back into the game. Do I quit? Do I reinvent?
Yeah, a horrible way to get back into the game.
But yeah, I just got to a point last week where juggling all the platforms takes me away from YouTube, but juggling the platforms actually helps you YouTube, but it's taking me away from YouTube. So I don't know. I lost my head a little bit last week, and I feel like in the crisis, I found some answers which I'm hopefully excited about. But it's just a weird, unforgiving caper, this media industry.
Yeah, I don't really know how to explain it. It was like
So what it was I'm a problem solver, and I got my head on a swivel, and it's almost like what can I do next? What can I do next? What can I fix? What can I fix? And I just got to a point where, like, instead of going with the flow a little bit, focusing on the macro, not the micro, I got absorbed about like some of the issues I had in around like creating content, some of the roadblocks, some of the hurdles that consumed me to a point where I'm like, well, to solve that problem right now, I almost have to abandon it, give energy to something else, which will free me up. I can create more content on short form. I can dedicate myself to the pod if I lessen the grip on YouTube. I don't know. I had to go away and just chat to a lot of people in the industry who I got plenty of great advice, and it honestly helped me. But I don't know. It was one of those moments. I haven't had one of those moments before, like an almost like answerless sort of afternoon where you're going, what am I doing? But I think that lost feeling is very relatable to a lot of people, especially in their job and their career. And that's why I wanted to share it here.
Yeah, it's been something like we really are trying to figure out. And I think, to put it simply to the viewers so they have their head wrapped around it, it's work versus reward. And
yeah, it's like energy.
It's weird because we're so privileged to do what we do. But then when you're not getting that reward and you're trying to run what essentially is a business, and you have that moment of, if I keep going this way, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You're in trouble. And it was a weird week for both of us.
Yeah, we had a weird week.
Aspect.
We had a weird week.
So it is strange because from the outside view, the people see what we do and they're like, God, that it is the dream. And when it's humming, it is the dream. But when you realize how hard you have to fight in the downtime to keep this dream alive, and that you are trying to run a business, especially I think me and you maybe sometimes me just starting, and perhaps you in your how you run it all, have got caught a little bit too much not treating it a business, because you don't want to be too it's the dream, and you want to appreciate the fact that it is the dream, and then you kind of get caught on your ass a bit like, oh, I probably haven't put some systems in place to I don't want to go into too much detail because it isn't big things, but there's sometimes you get caught out like, well, how awesome's this, but also I'm going to bed stressing about my dream job.
Well, what Tommy Mitchell just said, because I posed that question to him about the new show with Guinea. the Titch and Guinea show where they're breaking down plays is either going to be copied or picked up from a network. And does he see the value in owning it himself? Because he can make it a full show with full production and he can make it profitable if he just owns it himself. But also that's just a lot of work. So, or does he sell it to Fox Footy and they do all that for him? Like, I get the feeling that crossroads will come in the next 6 to 12 months. It's a phenomenal footy nerdy program. But what he said was like, oh, well, I just started it as a hobby and because I love it. So I don't know. And I love that answer because I'm like, fuck, like I can get wrapped up in like the commercial side of creating fun content. And I go, yeah, to make it more commercially viable, do I go across and spam TikToks and build myself up on there? Does that make YouTube easier? Maybe, but it might take you away from YouTube. All right, well, do I put more time in? Like, you know, I'm sitting there just weighing a lot of that stuff up. But Tommy is right. Like, you know, I started this as a hobby. It still is a hobby. Like, I can't believe I wake up and, you know, roll out of bed and I don't know. I am living the dream. But sometimes it's work, sometimes it's hard, and juggling that has been an issue for sort of 18 to 24 months. And a part of firing the potty up was to pick people's brain. Like I got a lot out of just chatting to Tommy Mitchell. I got a lot out of chatting to Cheats. Like I'm actually learning stuff on this pod, and that's almost like the reason for it. It's like, great, I get to have 45 minutes to an hour with these creative people in the industry and I learn from them. But also like another side of it was to share with the audience. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's like Tom Mitchell, there are times where I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm not getting in front of the audience enough. I feel like the content's not to a high enough standard. We're getting there. I'm doing a lot behind the scenes to try and get it there as consistent, as high standard as I can. But man, him saying like, I feel like a failure, so relatable. Tom Mitchell,
if he
Brown
feels like a
Lemon.
failure, I'm fucked. Like, I understand where he's coming from.
Well, that I think I said it to him, but that mindset is a killer mindset. Like that, I think
shows why he achieved.
I think the only way you get a Brownlow medal is if you have that mindset, because you're performing at 80% and he goes, I need it to be 85, 80%'s a failure. And you're getting pats on the back for 80%. He gets it to 90%. He goes, it's not 100. He's getting accolades and pats on the back for 90%. He turns it up to that 99% and then becomes in the top 1% of his industry as an athlete. That's how you get there. And then when he's at 99, he's going, it's not 100. It's not 100.
The thing that is like would be frustrating for him, and if we look at it plainly, is in 10 years' time, he's not a Pendles. He's not one of the, although he's got the accolades, like he probably isn't one of those top upper echelon players, which I consider him skill-wise and talent-wise, yes.
Yeah.
If he'd played 300, 350 games at his level, he's genuinely one of the greats to ever do it. And he's probably sitting there
true.
Like knowing I had that in me. I could have been one of the best for like 3-4 premierships. I could have been a difference on every team I played on for 10, 15 years. And he knows he missed that. So I think there would be that aspect, because he was in his prime a animal.
Yeah.
And even towards the back half of his career, he was still an amazing footballer. So
he had a prolific 207 games, but in his brain,
imagine he played.
It could have been 3. Yeah. Nah, it's such a cool story. We're so lucky to have that connection in the industry, and some of the stuff that he said, especially around perfectionism and whatnot, super, super relatable. But I reckon we've padded this out to get a serviceable pod.
Yeah, sorry. We were followed with Dan Allen from Tom Mitchell. I haven't played 200 AFL games.
No, you haven't.
I've played about, I reckon, 40 local games for Templestowe. Averaged half a touch. I was scared of the football, but
that should have been one of my questions. How can you not be scared of the football? Like, to get it 54 times, you have to sort of Like, get over your fear of getting the football.
Hey, Tom, why aren't you scared of the football? And then he wrapped up like, I reckon you're closing the gap on me. And you're like, I haven't touched a football or done exercise since the grand final last year. And then he's like, oh, maybe I still got you.
Yeah. I'm glad he left going, I think I still got Dos. I think I still got him. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks for all the support. And you'll hear us next week for the mini.